Well, then at 1:31, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, Terry Greeno. Here. Present. Carl Kaminsky.
Present.
Mike Shorten.
Here.
Lou Ness. Here. And Teresa Mushes is here. We're missing Jim Kearns and Gloria Van Hoff.
Gloria's right behind me.
Oh, okay, well, I'll call her when she walks in.
Oh, you were parked out in the back 42.
Yeah.
Yep, I got my steps in for today, thank you.
All right, hi, and Gloria, and Big Note Gloria Van Hoff is coming at 1:31 as well.
There was no place to park. We were fighting for the spot. I won.
Then how did he beat you in here?
Because I had trouble with the mask.
Understood.
He's smarter with the mask than
All
I
right, do you want to pass Administrator
He's been
Ribbon down?
training in the county building, running around.
Does she have an agenda? You know what? I'll just include it. Here you go.
All right, do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes? Carl makes the motion and Mike seconds. Any discussion? Okay, well then, all that approve, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I do not believe we have any public comment. We do not. Are there any members' comments?
I got nada.
Okay, with no members' comments, we are rolling right on to the Bailey High Administrator report.
Okay, I got a ton of stuff I need to throw your way today. Some of it's more procedural than anything, and we'll cover that on the backside. So let's start with census. Current census right now is at 77. Let's see, that was not a new admit, that was a readmit. So 78, 77 or 78 today. I don't know if that lady that just got here puts us up more or not. We're trying to stay at 80, so we're staying right around that number that we want to be at. But we have had to increase the amount of supplemental staffing or agency staffing in order to maintain that higher census. So we, you'll see a resolution today. We're going to add a bunch of nursing agencies and supplemental staffing teams to our list of options in order to maintain that higher level of staffing. But we do need to kind of sit down and, not this group, my team needs to sit down and noodle out a new recruitment and retention plan for 2023 and 2024 as part of our strategic planning process. One of the things that we're finding from a recruitment side for new staff is we're just not getting any responses to the ads, and we're spending thousands of dollars a month on Indeed to sponsor ads to move them up the list, and we're not seeing anything in return for that. One of the things that I think we need to do better, and the county has put together this generational training, and we've been kind of going through this for about 3 weeks now. And it's really kind of opened my eyes to, we're not even close to hitting the targeted group with the right type of ad that we're looking for. So for example, putting ads on Indeed, the Gen Zs and the millennials are not going on Indeed to look for ads. They're actually getting their ads off of YouTube and some of the, not YouTube, Facebook and Instagram and some of these other social media sites. There's also, and again, we don't want to make this picking on the millennials, but they also don't read the ads. They want visual ads. They want more like a little short clip, 30 seconds, and telling us why the job is important. So we're going to change the way we pitch these ads in the next couple months and try to see if that changes the dial a little bit as far as bringing people in. Some of the more traditional stuff still works, but it's all time sensitive. So catching people as they're graduating from CNA school, catching people as they're graduating from nursing school, but that happens in kind of waves, right? Class ends, you get a bunch, and then there's a period of time, and then so we need to find something that's a little bit more consistently bearing fruit, and that's pretty much for all of our positions. So we're gonna be bringing something to you guys, probably not next month, that might be a little bit aggressive, but the following month that talks about a different recruitment strategy, and then also some potential retention ideas that we might want to look at, differentials. I have a wage survey being done right now to make sure that we're still in the market, just different things like that, and that way we can kind of take one big bite at it and settle into something for the rest of the year. So I'll bring that to you guys in the next couple months. The other thing I wanted to just make note of in your report, I provided you guys with the preliminary FY 2022 numbers, so that would be the entire fiscal year. I would not anticipate that they're gonna change much, but they will change a little bit as we do the outside audit at the end of every year. Some things just get moved from one account to the other, or, the numbers might move by a couple $100 here or there. So the general gist of it is the numbers that you see. One of the things that we did do in November that's reflected in these numbers is we wrote off $310,000 in uncollectible debt. Now, what does that mean? There's a whole bunch of different things that we are allowed to write off under the Medicare bad debt. It's the bad debt program, and what they do is then it comes back to you in Medicare bad debt payments. So you see it written off in one, and then a couple months later you're going to see it come back, not in full, but on the other side. So there's a little bit of Medicare bad debt in there. There's a little bit of Medicaid uncollectible money in there too. So, for example, the state of Illinois might have had some of their calculations wrong, and we were billing at the wrong rate. And obviously, once the resident passes away, family members, they're no longer going to work with you through the Medicaid process, and nor do I blame them, because it's just daunting what they have to go through. But there might be $1,000 or anywhere up to $5,000, $6,000 in difference between what we know they should have paid and what the state paid because of the incomes being off. All that stuff ends up getting written off at the end of the year. And we did have one large account that we did have to write off. It's been on the books for a couple of years. It's uncollectible. The person who was the responsible party moved, didn't forward the address, and we can't find him. So at this point, there's no point in keeping it on your books. So some of this loss that you see at the end of the year, it's booked, but it's unrealized because that money was already we didn't have it. And like the one that I'm talking about, I think it's 2018. So we really booked it at that point, but you will see it on our financial statements. So that puts us at a pretty rough year last year. A lot of that is driven by not being able to get the census as high as we needed it to, but still having the operational overhead. Obviously, we've gotten the census up to that point now. So the biggest challenge that we're going to have going forward is not inflation, although it's there. It's staffing. Staffing is the single greatest threat to this organization, and you can't keep the census up if we can't staff the building. And agency's great, but agency's not your staff, and they don't care at the same level that you do. They're not invested in it like you are. So we really need to focus on that as being, if there's any one thing that we move the needle on in 2023, it's got to be staffing. That's the number one thing.
Is it okay if we ask questions?
Absolutely.
So, do you guys have access to the data that shows the skill set that you need and where they live and where they're commuting and where they're working now? You actually have that?
Yeah, because everybody's certified and licensed, the state keeps those databases. And if we wanted to, you could get a list of all the nurses, where they live, and whatnot. That's not really the issue. They're just not out there. I mean, there's just nobody that wants to get into long-term care. Even the classes are not that full. We've got to do, as a sector, we've got to do a better job of promoting the why people want to come into this business versus the hospitals. One of the problems that we run into, the nursing home of 20 years ago and the nursing home of today they're so different. And you have, we are a mini hospital. At this point, if you look at our first floor, at the acuity and the residents we're taking and the amount of care that they need, we are basically a mini hospital, but we aren't getting reimbursed as if we're a mini hospital, and the expectations are even higher than in most hospital settings. So it kind of creates a tricky situation, because 15, 20 years ago, nurses would retire from the hospital and step down into long-term care.
Yeah.
And now they don't do that, because the workload, if you compare it apples to apples, in the hospital you might have 6 patients. Here you have 25. The expectations are a little bit different, but the care is still there. And so it's no longer a step-down job from a hospital. It's parallel, and I would tell you that there are a lot of nurses out on that floor that will argue with you right now that it's harder here than in the hospital setting, because of, again, patient load and expectations. So it's a tough challenge. And that is going to be, again, you'll hear me say it, I say it all the time, it's in my my notes of training with the staff. Our single greatest threat is staffing. We have to solve the staffing puzzle, and that's not just here. That's across the entire sector, or you're going to have healthcare access issues getting even worse.
So you said the 25 patients per nurse versus 6 in a hospital, is that something that's increased over time?
It's been pretty consistent. What's increased over time is not your caseload, it's the acuity of your caseload.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of work that it takes, each patient. You bring somebody in from the hospital on a short stay with complex wounds, it could be 3 hours of time in that day to undress the wounds, to treat,
Right.
redress the wound. So we're talking pretty complex patients here.
Okay.
The hospital is 6 to 8 on average. The other difference is that when their census adjusts, they send people home. Our census stays pretty consistent, so
Right.
it's every day just about 20, 22 residents that a nurse on a floor upstairs will have to deal with. Now they have teammates and other nurses, but that's a pretty high caseload.
Sure.
We would love to get that even smaller, but there's just not out there. Right back to that same boat that we're in. Go ahead.
What was the change in what you were doing and you were okay to now you're hurting?
As far as the staffing,
Yeah. Or has it always been a pain in the?
COVID. We lost a ton of staff in the height of COVID. We have anybody that could retire. And they took early retirement. And if you could have been in that probably 12-month period where we were locked into this building and no one could come or go, and it was rough. People were burning out. There's no doubt about that. There's still burnout out on the floor right now today as a residual of that. But the problem is that all those people that left, there was nobody that came in behind them to replace them. And so we're still feeling those effects.
Okay.
And we, from a relative standpoint, our turnover percentage is like 34% turnover. If you go and look at the industry average right now for long-term care, for CNA turnover, it's over 100%. Buildings are turning over their entire staff every year. And then we're wondering why there's quality of care problems across the country. We don't have that problem, but we're not able to replace them at the same rate as we're losing them, which in the past, we've always been able to do that. We've always been able to, you lose one, you can pick up one pretty quick. And that's for the last year and a half has not been able to do that. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I wonder, have you, and I don't know if I missed you saying this, but have you participated in any job fairs?
We do them. We do
Where?
the job fairs at the college. One of the things that we do that's unique and neat is we go into every one of the high school's health classes and we talk about long-term care, and we leave applications and information, and that's where we get a lot of our new staff is the high schools,
Okay.
which is creating a little bit of a problem for us because us older folks are not communicating effectively with our younger staff. And I think that when we talk about the employee engagement survey, when I was able to meet with the staff and kind of start pulling at the numbers, it's perception. It's understanding that, the younger kids want touch points every 5 minutes, of the day, where your older staff, in their mind, it's like, yeah, I checked in with them yesterday. I'll check in with them. No, so we're missing that mark. We would like to have a little bit more of a blend of the generations as far as staff, because established nurses and CNAs, they're great. They hit the floor, they know what they're doing. These young, CNAs and nurses are great, but they're young and they take a lot of work, and just getting them up to speed at, healthcare has a really nasty habit, and I think you'll attest to this, of eating their young. And what it is you get a young CNA that comes in and they're not fast. They don't have the routines down. They have not picked up a rhythm yet. And so they can't keep up with the staff that have been established for a while, and then the staff eat their young. So we have to work very hard on maintaining that atmosphere as far as training goes as well. So
when you say they require touch points, does that mean they need instruction or they need
No.
feedback or?
Feedback, right? So one of the things that came out in the comments of the employee engagement survey was that there's a desire for more nursing leadership presence on the floor. And so what does that mean? And so I had an employee council meeting, and we had representatives from the departments, and I asked the question of them, like, when you say more presence, what does that mean? And they started out by saying, well, we need more nursing managers working shifts on the floor. And it's like, okay, well, I'm giving you 8 to 16 hours a week of our employee development coordinator every week right now. So you're already getting that as part of the general schedule. how much more should we put out on the floor? And I'm talking with them and working it through, like if she's on the floor, someone has to do her job. So you can't tie up every nursing manager, and we were talking it through, and what it all boiled down to is no one's checking in with them daily. Okay, that makes sense if you're, we're missing the point. If you're thinking of being actively involved as we've got one of our nurse managers working the floor side by side with you, that should be good enough. It's not. My older nursing managers need to get out on the floors daily, and just, it's not that they need instruction, because the staff are great. They just need to know that we're here, and we're a little bit more involved.
Okay.
The generations training has been eye-opening for me. One is that I realize I'm the old guy in the room now, and I'm way more out of touch than I thought I was. But two, I think I have a multi-generational workforce. So when I did the generations training January 31st with my staff, when the first training, I had 5 generations sitting in that room. I mean, that's my maintenance guy that's been here 50 years, all the way down to my high school kid that we just hired. So I can assure you that the communication between those, we're missing some marks. But I think we did a great job of raising awareness of, hey, our young kids see this as presence, whereas our older staff, maybe we can bridge the gap. It was a great hour-and-a-half session. We went through the employee survey results, and then we talked about generations as it relates to the results and why some of the things are coming up. Now let's see how that, in the quarter, we'll do it again and see where we're at. So that's a long answer to the question about how we got to this point, but that's the most important thing right now is staff.
And just one more question.
Yep.
This turnover that you have,
Mhm.
do you see it more prevalent with the younger employees than you do with some of the ones who are, say, 40 plus?
I'm gonna go 50-50. I've got retirements coming up, and a lot of the people leaving are either retired or they're moving into a less stressful back 9 of their career. I had one person go into a medical office. Yeah, I mean, this is not a job for the weak. You know that. And so I think a lot of people coming out of COVID, they did their time. They're close to retirement. They're doing that. I've got a whole bunch of young kids right around that 20 years old. They all moved. They moved out of Illinois. Or they started working in Wisconsin. It's not hard to have a nurse's license in Illinois, drive 30 minutes across the border, and Wisconsin's Medicaid rates are better. They pay more. The difference is, if you have a Wisconsin license, you cannot drive across the border in Illinois and practice. There's no reciprocity. Illinois is one of the few states that you have to have an Illinois license to practice. So when Pam Maltoff was a state senator, we tried getting reciprocity passed, and she was one of the sponsors of the bill. So that tells you how long we've been trying to deal with this problem, and we're still in the same boat today as we were back then, which is a lot of the nursing unions do not want to support reciprocity. So we lose them to that. And then the young kids, we lose them to going to school. That's the worst thing about hiring a high school kid. You get 3 years of them, and they're going to move on. And now a lot of them stay on in a registry capacity, so they come home for spring break, they work a couple shifts. They come home for Christmas break, they work a couple shifts. That's what, and then the summertime, and that's what allows us to spell or give vacations to our long-term staff. Is when the kids come back and during those holiday seasons or during the summer, now we have enough extra staff that we can start, hey, take a week, that kind of thing. So we have them, but how active are they? Yeah.
Well, it's not unique to this environment.
No.
There's the struggle between the younger employees coming in, the long-term employees, how they talk to each other, how they open up pathways, right, for improved advancement and people that are younger, they work different now. I mean, just was in this conversation the other day about, the younger, like they don't take overtime, and so they're not dedicated. I'm like, well, maybe they want a life.
Yeah.
Like their job is their job, and when it's 4 o'clock, they go home because they want to go home. And so I think having older people give up some of that, what they think the good employee looks like in the environment, and it's hard. You know, so absolutely, I get that, and it doesn't solve your problem to understand, like, how will you staff up enough so that your bottom line balances. You know, that's a tough place to be on. Can I ask you another question about the numbers on this first page, if
Sure.
I could? Because I'm not sure. What is insurance like Med A? What does that mean?
So you've got managed care for Medicare. So all of these, you know, the fancy commercials with the old actors and football players that come on and they tell you about their Medicare Advantage, Blue Cross Blue Shield plan.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
insurance like Med A. So we still have to go through a lot of the same Medicare Part A hoops. It's a short-term stay,
Okay.
but the difference is the benefit, the way it's paid out, is different from insurance company to insurance company.
Okay.
So when we talk about short-term rehab, add those two groups together. Medicare Part A, which is your traditional Medicare, and insurance like Med A, which is your Medicare managed plans.
Okay.
Or Medicare
Okay.
Advantage
Great.
plans.
Got it. Okay.
I will tell you that over the last 2 years, the number of people coming in with the Medicare replacement plans or these Medicare Advantage plans has skyrocketed. Not always the best option from a care standpoint because they're on the phone on the second day saying, let's get them out, let's get them
Yeah.
out, let's get them out. Whereas Medicare allows a little bit more, traditional Medicare allows a little bit more decision-making from the actual medical team.
From a doctor. Oh my God.
So we count them the same. You're only going to get a maximum benefit. Usually, right now it's like 20 days max, and a lot sooner if you're on Medicare Advantage. But yeah.
So these total days, 24, 28, are a reflection of replicated days by these 78 people.
No, 24, 28 is total number of heads in the bed at midnight for the course of the month. Okay. So
For the course of the month.
For the course of the
So
month.
it's month-long. It's, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
So every night at 11:59, one of my staff members goes around and does what is called the midnight census.
Okay.
In the real world of Medicare and all of the other insurers and everything, nothing matters during the day. The only moment that matters is 11:59:59.
Okay.
Gloria, nodding your head.
I know, yeah.
Because this is what drives the entire financial picture. So you have somebody go around and you basically count heads in the bed. You're doing rounds, you're verifying it, but that's what you see reflected there. So on through January of the 31 days, they counted 2,428 heads in the bed through the entire month.
Okay.
And then up above is what were their pay sources and how does that break down?
I got that part.
So you
and then
can
the
have some-
78 is the unduplicated individuals.
That's
And-
78 is what,
Right.
when you took that snapshot on the last day of the month, how many heads were in the bed? 78.
Okay, got it.
And then the month average is if you take how many heads were in the bed at the end of each night and you average it across the 31 days, what's your monthly average?
Yeah, I got that. Thank you very much.
Yep. So we can provide care for somebody all the way up until 11:55 p.m. Therapy, rehab, the whole night. Send them to the hospital and not get paid for the entire day because they were not there at midnight. Now, we could send them out at 12:01 and get paid for that day. So it's just how the system works. It's been like that for the entire time I've been in this field. Midnight census is one of the most important things that's done during the day.
Okay, got it.
All right, great questions though. All right, so that was the financial, I did, Donna, the treasurer, was able to replicate the same report that we were getting from Glenda.
Okay.
So I have that in your packets, along with one of the things that you guys had asked was some historical trending of our actual fund balances. So I included that in your packets as well, just so you can get a feel for it. Glenda did mention in her email to me, Donna mentioned in her email to me that she wanted you and I to get together with her again and start baking this into the model. So we're in good shape with that. Let's see, strategic plan. So March.
Well, I guess everyone,
Yeah.
there was quite a dip from November to January. Is that because that's when you accounted for the bad debt?
Nope.
No.
No,
You
'cause
just
that-
had a big dip.
the bad debt, all of that stuff is operational.
Okay.
These
Just
are,
cycle funds.
these are our actual funds in the bank, so I can't give you 100% of an answer to that, other than, I can call Donna and ask her to define what happened.
Okay.
And maybe we had done this in the past, but maybe we ask if she wouldn't mind attending, maybe every quarter, every 6 months. She can tell you where she's investing the money, because that could also be a reflection of money being moved into a different
Right.
investment fund.
Yeah, well, the operating account is what lost, almost $2 million in 2 months.
Yep, but that's where she's moving the money out of.
Three months.
To invest. The money comes out of operating, and so, I don't wanna speak for her, but
Okay.
I know that when she took over, there was some money that was invested right away. That could be a reflection of that dip.
Okay.
You know what? I'll send her an email.
Oh, okay.
I'll ask her, and I'll send you
Okay.
guys an email back
Yeah.
and let you know what.
Can we go back to the staffing for just a
Yep.
second? I may have missed it, but what is the average pay for the nurses? What is the starting pay?
It's really gonna depend on your position, your licensure. So nurses, they're right around, I think, 28. That would be RNs. LPNs are, I think, I wish I had my computer in front of me. I think the LPNs might be around 26. CNAs are right around 20.
Starbucks pays $20.
And then are
Look,
they unionized?
every time I
too?
walk in and out of the Aldi by my house and I see that sign that says starting at 1850, it just drives me nuts, because these people are just literally sitting in a chair. All right, we have staff out here caring for people and they're making less than that. So why would you want to go into food service in a long-term care facility at $16 an hour when $18.50, you don't even have to walk? I mean, you're just sitting in a chair. That's what we're up against.
Now, are they unionized here? or-
No.
Are we, okay, that's good.
No, they were unionized.
Okay.
And they decertified back in 2020. And so since then, we've been non-union. We do wage surveys 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
And we make adjustments more often now than we have in the past. We just did an adjustment for the starting wages for all of nursing in August, September.
And what's the starting wage?
That's what I just gave you.
Oh, that was the.
That was the
okay,
number I gave you.
already,
Because if
okay.
you were asking me like average,
Oh, you don't know.
I've got staff members that have been here 30-something years. As a CNA, they're making $30 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, so that really skews the average significantly.
Okay.
I can give you guys a breakdown of all of our starting wages and whatnot, and it's competitive within the marketplace.
In this county?
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
but it's not,
Not
it's-
so in Lake
it's
County.
not fully, you can't come here and work a full-time job and get rental in McHenry County and keep your income at 40% that you can't, for housing. You can't, not at that, because the living wage in McHenry County is $46 an hour. If you're gonna keep your housing at 30%, and you're gonna have manageable debt, which means you really have to work, the average wage is $17. Now, these are last year's numbers, but I don't think they've really changed all that much. But you're right, so there's part of the problem, and plus as a CNA, you have to have education, you have to take a test, you have to be certified, you have to do continuing education. So it's not like if you go to Starbucks and believe me, I love my Starbucks, right? And I think they have a hard job because they deal with caffeine deficient people, but,
Especially early in the morning.
yeah, but I think, when you're talking about a certified nursing assistant, which is a professional position. What do you think would be a salary that would attract people to a job like this?
Well, I'd have to look at the market data and how far people are driving now, which is actually what I've requested it. Just to know, because, and I only did 15 miles, because I figured quality of life, when you're a nurse, you don't need to go further than that, just to get a picture of what it's like right now. We do this every day, it's what I do. And even positions that are harder than nurses. But that, we want to get the talent and attract it, and so then we have to know what we're up against. So, we'll find out.
I'll take any data you want to throw my
And then
way.
there's a little bit more than, there's more than the salary. There's the quality of life, there's the hours, it's what they're doing on their job. you know, what their passion is.
Well, and I
you
think
know,
that we need
the
to
what's in it
acknowledge
for
that,
them.
what you just talked about, quality of life.
Mhm.
You know, working at a shorter staff than what you would like to have is not, that doesn't enhance the quality of life.
No,
And
I
that's,
noticed the numbers and I thought that was probably it on the survey.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing. The transition between, the way we broke the building up, I still have some staff that are really pushing back against that. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the employee survey. But any data you want to throw my way, I'm a data wonk. I love it. So send it my way.
might not be helpful at all, which I'll let you know too.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, but you could never, it's always good to have information to base, you know, to take a look at the choices and the planning. It's all, I sometimes think you can, like, it's better to have more and decide what you're gonna wanna use than to have less.
Yep.
So this is a struggle that the county board has been facing for a number of years, and recently, in fact, I think it was last summer, there was a compensation analysis that was done that elevated a lot of the pay grades, and really, and the intent was to match what the market would provide. So as policymakers, you're going to be continuing to face that question, that struggle, and what I'm going to suggest to you is you're going to, you know, when you get a proposal, to be creative with your compensation plan, such as instead of breaking it down to, I'm going to pick on DOT, like you have maintenance worker 1 and 2 and 3, you have these gradients, to maybe blur those lines to be a little bit more competitive with attracting talent in and then keeping talent in to allow them to move up. When you look at Valley High as the operating committee, keep in mind that, you know, DOT is an example, but Valley High in particular is directly competing with the private sector. So, you know, county administration, you know, we have maybe have some transfer over with some skills, but, you know, there's not deputy county administrators being hired at, you know, Aptar, for example. But he's competing with all these facilities in and around, and they have a lot more tools at their disposal just by the way that they're structured, the fact that they're private.
Absolutely.
So my suggestion really is, or my ask of you, is think in those terms, and, you know, when you run this committee too, as Tom mentioned, this is the number one struggle, the number one threat to what we do. And as policymakers, it's up to you, and we need your help to help us, you know, stay competitive and to give the employees, and, well, first off, to create the opportunities here that will be attractive, and then the opportunities that would be, that will allow them to stay here, so.
And I have a stupid question. Do you do, for like your current staff, like referral fees or hiring bonus? Okay.
Yeah, we have,
That you probably did.
yeah, we have the, what is it, referral bonus, new hire bonus, shift pickup bonus, special assignment bonuses. So if we have to reassign somebody for a day into a, you know, department they don't normally work at, we throw another $50 their way, you know, little things like that. If we have a situation where 2 people call off and I gotta have somebody stay over, you know, we throw a bonus at that. You know, so there are, we're not for loss of bonuses. Now, we might need to go in and take a look at how they are paid and tweak them a little bit. One of the things that we can look at is shift differentials, okay? The problem with shift differentials is that you can't roll them back.
Right.
You know, because people look at it as, okay, if I wait, I'm just gonna use round numbers. If I make $20 an hour, and then you put a $3 differential on the shift, I make $23 an hour. So if you take that differential away, you just took $3 away from me. And so the idea of to continue to ramp up the differentials to attract more people, it's great and all, but that becomes permanent.
Right.
And so I don't want to just keep throwing money at the problem, knowing that down the road, year 2, year 3, we might not need it anymore as people start coming back to work, but now I'm stuck at this pay rate. So we're going to look at all of that, and that's what's going to come to you guys when I say that recruitment and retention plan. If you've ever seen how we do these in the past, it's usually a comprehensive, multi-page document, and it goes down the line of everything that we need to do in order to get to that next phase. And we do these every 2 years, so we're right at that timing of it. If you've got ideas like different bonuses and things that we might not have thought of, hey, again, more data is great. Send it my way. I'd be more than happy to look at them. You know, I don't want to get down to where, like, DeKalb County right now is paying $7 a differential on their night shift. You're now paying almost agency rates for night shift staff. That's not sustainable in any way. So that's what my fear is. You know, you keep ratcheting these things up, but where does it stop? So.
Well, and I imagine the other thing, since we are the county nursing home for the aging population, you have indigent people. Your revenue source is different than private companies who the majority of assisted living and memory care and blah, 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 those are private pay. You have to have money to get into them. And so I started looking around. Who takes indigent seniors? Well, Valley High, if they're beds. Woodstock residents will take 2, maybe. The other one I'm not going to mention because you probably don't want to send seniors there. But so that your revenue, the other side of the expenses is the revenue. You're locked into the Medicaid rate. So you really can't bill your actual cost for care, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So that then is, I imagine, that makes it difficult to compete in the market as an organization that's committed to serving indigent seniors who have no resources.
Well, and that's the argument of the disparity of having that tax levy and being able to support that. And that's one of the things that we've always tried to do with the investments is to get to a point where the return on the investments was the same amount as what we gave up in the tax levy to offset the loss. Now, we're not there yet. We have a long way to go, and that rebate kind of set us back a little bit too because we were building that investment portfolio. But that's the goal. So with Glenda starting it and Donna carrying the torch at this point, the goal is to continue to invest so that our investments are bringing back enough to cover the disparity between what the Medicaid rate is and what our costs are. So yeah, you are spot on with that.
That is really tough.
So I just had one final comment on the wage, the starting wages. And so I noticed that you said $20 an hour for CNAs.
Right around there, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really good, I think, because like in Lake County, when I did a wage survey there, we don't, the difference is that it was an ICFDD, so we don't have as many CNAs, we don't hire as many as you would here, but the starting rate was lower than $20 an hour. We had a lot of CNAs that are, because now nurses have to be CNAs now. You know, it used not to be, but they have to do that. So we have a lot of CNAs that come to work who are going to nursing school. So we lose them.
I'd say 70% of the students that come through the clinicals here, because we are a clinical site, they're not even going to be a CNA. They are using that as the bridge to either physical therapy or to nursing, which is taking a spot from somebody who would potentially be going into that.
Right. So what I wanted to ask, when you did your wage survey, was it, and you may have answered this question, was it for this area? Okay, great.
So we got about 9 facilities that we typically will talk to. Alden of McHenry, Alden of Huntley, Crossroads, Hearthstone, Florence. There's a skilled unit with the hospital in Harvard. I know I'm forgetting somebody out of Crystal Lake. The Pearl out of Crystal Lake, which is they're by a different name, and then there's Crystal Pines.
Okay.
So, and I'm pretty sure I left somebody out of that list as I was going through the neighborhoods, but I mean, we're only looking at McHenry County and our competitors.
Okay.
And so we're not comparing ourselves to Cook County rates. We're not comparing ourselves to, you get farther out west to Boone County and whatnot. So we're trying to stay as local as we can so that apples to apples.
Okay, I'm just gonna order shots for everybody, and then I'm gonna give you some data. Within 15 miles of where we are right now, there's 101 registered nurses. The average nurse has 11 to 15 years of experience. The median compensation is $78,800. The national compensation for that qualification is $85,000. Within 15 miles radius of where we are right now, there have been, year-to-date, 10,380 job postings for nurses. The top recruiter is Northwestern with just under 1,100 job postings. Now this gets interesting. Nurses right now, compensation on average, years of experience, 1 to 2 years of experience, 1 to 2 years of experience, $88,000. 3 to 5 years of experience, 3 to 5 years is 107.5, 107.5, 3 to 5 years experience. 21 plus years of experience, 72,000. Just to show you, you know, the bubble going through. Right now,
Jerry, excuse me, are you still talking within like a 15-mile radius of
15
here?
mile radius.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so that's all that I was looking at there. So,
So at 100,000 a year, what is that per hour?
oh, that's 50.
So by the time you add in, is that total compensation?
Yeah, that's payroll burden.
Okay. Yeah,
So, yeah,
that sounds about right.
so, figure out, hey, what can be done? That's a tough one.
I just want to say we shouldn't really get hung up all on salary, because when we do employee satisfaction surveys, salary does not come at the top of that
It's
list.
true.
There are other things that come first. There are maybe 2 other things that come first, and one is job appreciation, and fulfillment. So salary, I think, ranks about number 3 or 4 in surveys that are done nationwide.
Didn't even
So-
come up in the last engagement survey.
Yeah, so
Not
I
one
don't.
comment.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget about salary, because it's very important, especially if you are, wanting to live in the county, you have to be able to afford that. But there are other things that we have to look at too, employee morale and enrichment programs and employee appreciation programs.
Now, that was LPNs, and I've got.
That was just LPNs?
Yeah, so I've got.
Oh, I thought you were telling me RNs. So RNs
No,
are
no, I'm
probably,
sorry. Let me see, hang on. I did, that's RNs, I'm sorry. Then I'm getting LPNs
Okay, that's
and
better.
CNAs.
because then RNs would have to have been at like 130, 140.
That was that was RNs. LPNs, but, I mean, that is correct. The question is that when you look at 181 RNs, 110 LPNs with 6,500 job postings this year to date, local median income is 65,000, 1 to 2 years experience, 82. Oh boy, something's up here. I would not trust this data. Right?
Well, there has been a lot of.
When you look at sign-on bonuses right now and everything else that's going on,
Well, there's a big drop. It says average is 40, so there's something going on there. But
Can I ask a question? The county board's decision around the whole tax issue and the rebate, how did that impact Valley High's cash flow?
We talked about that at our last meeting.
Sorry.
Not good.
It hurt.
It hurt.
It it drained the fund balance down to about $8.6 million. There was $15 million that was allocated for the rebate, 8.6, maybe a little bit more, was claimed. But when we do the model, which we're planning on next month, when I get the updated data, you'll be able to see it clearly on the fund balance. You'll be able to see that drop, and it's indicated where that happened. Now, the model breaks it down to 12 months of operating, then you have a capital indemnity band, and those are really let's say if you can avoid touching them, don't touch them bands. That was high up in the unreserved fund balance to drop that down. But next month, we can do a little deeper dive into that impact.
so it was the investments that got impacted the most because we had to pull all that money back. And so when you talk about cash flow, that's where the cash flow part of it came from.
It
'cause a lot
makes
of
up the piece that we don't get funded for through private care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when were you going to do the presentation again where we experimented with different case mixes? And I know you did a really good job last time of showing us, because I think right now is it like 70-20-10 or 70 for
70-30.
Medicaid,
Yeah, 70.
20 for Medicare, and 10 private pay? Or am
I think it's
remembering?
70-30-20. 70 Medicaid, 30 Medicare, and 20 private pay.
That doesn't add up to 100%.
Well, off of 120
Oh,
beds.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
these are total beds.
okay, so when we look at percentage-wise, I think we had 70% Medicaid, 20% Medicare, and 10 private pay, which would be 100%.
Yeah, the ratio that was approved is just based on number of beds.
Okay.
So not on percentage. With the model now has a percentage calculator in there where you can run those scenarios and say, think of it in percentages, not in actual beds.
Okay.
So there are multi-layers here. It's
There
not
are.
just the wage we pay per hour, it's the fact that the county board drained what you use to close that gap between indigent and private pay expenses. So our job as county board members is to educate the county board about the importance and the value of leaving you alone. Do not touch,
Don't touch the levy.
don't touch the levy
We'll
because,
actually raise the levy is what's gonna happen.
well,
That's
yeah.
a future topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
well, it's so I think the other thing that I'm hearing, the not raising the overall levy for 10 years then also has a scraping away of our ability to fund the county, because there were no additional funds to meet those cost of living increases across the board as a county. Because I've heard this in 2 or 3 places now, the impact of not having a levy increase on services and
Yeah,
goods.
but you also
We
gotta
actually-
watch out because, this entity wants the levy raised, this entity wants the levy raised. And you get to a point where you're chasing your tail and people enough and out of here.
But
Here's
the
the
le-
problem, here's the thing I want to reiterate, because I don't know if you heard this if you knew this. We don't actually fund Valley High with our taxes.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
It's only $10,000. That's the only thing we give Valley High is $10,000. It's a placeholder.
Yeah,
So,
so that if we have to, we could, but we don't need to at this point. They just-
Well,
yeah.
So,
I don't think we can say that for sure yet.
That will,
Tom,
that is
correct
gonna be,
me if
it is
I'm
gonna be a
wrong.
future topic to discuss, what are we gonna, if we're going to charge, actually levy anything from Valley High. Because the $10,000 is a placeholder, and it's not, we're not actually funding Valley High with tax money.
Right.
so why do we oversee them then?
But we're still a county department.
Yeah.
No matter how you slice it, we're a county home, we're an enterprise fund, not we don't compete against the general fund.
Well, my understanding is that it was part of the public health committee, and they simply did not have the bandwidth to really oversee it, and we're going into this building expansion for the
Memory care
memory
unit.
care, which is going to actually enhance the position and might really help with the recruiting too.
I think it will. I
When
think it will.
people are, they specializing and it attracts more, so.
How is that field of candidates?
Well, from a resident standpoint, because we will take Medicaid in that certified unit, you're gonna have an unlimited number of potential referrals. Because that's a private pay-based service right now out in the public sector. Now, you can get a Medicaid locked unit, which is great, because they're not gonna get off the unit, but there's no programming, and it's not designed to enhance someone with memory deficits abilities, it's just a locked unit.
No, I'm talking about your employee.
Oh, I think,
If you're having a problem getting employees here, now you're gonna throw another 20, patients that are gonna need 3 times the staff to, morning, noon, and night. How is that going to be getting staff in there? Is the
It's a
same
different-
kind of problem you
Yeah.
have now with the open space staff?
well, first off, the staffing, way you staff it would be totally different,
Yes.
because the acuity level is different.
Right, but you still need
But you're still gonna need
people.
it. And now you're also looking at a different type of staff.
Right.
Are
So,
they out there?
I think that when you show the way that the unit's gonna be with the programming, you're gonna find people that are out there that are working in non-certified units that really enjoy working with people with Alzheimer's. They're gonna wanna work somewhere that has the unit that is designed to do what they do best.
Okay, because
So,
one's gotta be concerned, if you're having a staffing problem here, the county has a staffing problem, transportation has it. Now you wanna have a memory care, why wouldn't you apply the same logic that you're gonna have a problem keeping that staff?
It's different, Carl. It just depends on the labor buckets and
But is there a labor,
Yes.
So part of the delay with the memory care unit and why you're doing it now as opposed to a few years ago was really because of that issue, is the county could afford it, we could do that, but if you couldn't staff it, there was no point in doing it. And then at that point in time, we're gonna go back about 3 years, I would say,
Yeah, more than that.
maybe 4 years, Tom had put together a staffing strategy. Now, this is, pre-pandemic, so a lot has changed. And really, the intent was to bring the staffing level back up to here to ensure that we would be able to staff that memory care unit. And then when the Valley High Operating Committee was formed as a standing committee of the county board, they wanted to move this forward, knowing it's gonna take about 1.5 years before it gets into play. So that's still something that is gonna be a challenge for Tom, but as you mentioned, it's a different type of employee, but I think it's a little bit, well, maybe I shouldn't say.
there's more in the pool to choose from to staff it, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, because you're looking at assisted living staff that would potentially be a candidate. It's not just skilled nursing or hospital. It opens the pool up a little bit. But it's more activity-based and less medical-based. If they're medical, they should be on the other side of the unit, the wall, into a general unit because they're gonna need more care.
Right.
So you're gonna staff with more activity staff, not as many of the nursing staff. So it's a little bit of a different type of employee altogether.
Because just in general, no matter what industry, you ain't getting employees. And I'm kind of shocked that you're like not worried about it. I'm like, wow, I don't know of one industry that doesn't have that problem, or competent help. That they actually know how to breathe, chew gum, and walk at the same time.
Well, a lot of these young kids can't do that. But
Multi-generational training.
I know,
Right,
I gotta,
it's a public meeting, I was gonna say, we just heard you say that,
the
yeah.
Zers, I'm sorry. But we have time. We really
Okay.
have a completely different type of candidate that we'd be looking at.
Sweet, because I don't want to hold that up
No,
because of
I
that.
would-
Just let's keep
Just
pushing
keep in mind
forward.
that we won't build the census on that unit without the staff already behind it. So you stair step it. You know that you gotta get, whatever the economics will be when we get to that point, but let's just say 6 residents before you add a staff member. So you already start with 6, and then you build from there, and you do it in numbers like that.
Increments.
Yep. And as you hit each increment, you add in more staff. If you don't have the staff, you don't add the resident increment in.
What about other support staff? You see any problems in that? Janitors.
Housekeeping and laundry are really the ones we're challenged with at this time.
Food serve. I don't know.
I have a very stable kitchen.
Okay.
I mean,
As that demand grows, well, that's gotta.
actually,
Or they are built for
They're-
capacity.
they're already
anyhow.
built for it.
Okay.
a lot of my support departments have been staffed at 120 resident census level, since the beginning of the COVID, and we just have not, they might have come down a little bit, but we haven't laid anybody off. So we're still sitting with the ability to add beds right now if I had more nursing staff.
Okay.
We're not gonna do that once we start the project, because I gotta take the 2 hallways offline. But right now, if I had another 24 hours of CNA time a day and maybe another 16 hours of nurse time, I would open another hall. They're just not out there.
Okay. Do we, so that was your administrative report, we're gonna go talk about the survey results when we get to discussion items.
Can I just cover 2 other things real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I sent you guys out, and this is part of that, I have to do this every year, and I need it in the record to reflect it. So I sent you 2 documents that are really, dense with information. The first one is the facility assessment. I just want to explain what it is. We are required to update that every year. If you want to know about Valley High, what services we provide, how we staff the building, what our committee structures look like, that's your go-to document. So I'm giving that to you guys as kind of like your, I don't want to say Bible, but it'll give you everything you need to know about our building for 2023 and how we go about things. So it's kind of like just your informational guide. The second one is our compliance plan, and I am required to share that with you guys every year. And I'm also required to get a sign-off that you guys have received a copy of it and that I've at least explained to you what it is and how it comes to be. If you look on the back of the handout that I sent you guys, the very last page is the acknowledgement that I gave you guys a copy of the compliance plan. So federal regulations establish that we have to have certain areas addressed in compliance. And we do have a compliance officer. Her name is Tara. She is the assistant administrator here. They recommend, the federal government recommends that the compliance officer not be the facility administrator and not be anybody in the business office, which makes a lot of sense. So Tara gets to wear that hat. She does compliance reports to the Quality Assurance Committee quarterly, or if something comes up during the month. And we have a compliance committee, our ethics committee, and different things that are required. It's all spelled out in the document. But because we participate in the Medicare and Medicaid programs, we are required to have said plan, and the board of directors, so you guys are lucky enough to be that said board, has to be made aware of it. And you guys also need to know that if you have any compliance concerns, who you could go to bring those concerns forward. It's not me, it's Tara. You guys email her, call her, I can introduce you guys to her. Not today, she's running the ball with the surveyors right now. But that way, there's always that checks and balances as to, are we billing correctly? Are we charging correctly? Are we managing the Medicare, Medicaid programs, that kind of stuff. So if you guys could leave those behind when you leave today, that would be greatly appreciated.
Then it's okay to pull it off, or
Yep.
do you have blank ones?
No, pull it off.
Now, Tom, do you just need this from committee members?
Yep,
only?
yep,
So
just
if
that.
you're visiting and not,
Yep, just the committee members.
I don't think, Terry, are you a committee member?
Yes.
You are? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No,
You weren't
I'm
at the
just
last
hanging
meeting.
here for
I thought you
fun.
were hanging here because you liked it, because I know Lou is hanging.
No, Lou's also a committee member.
Oh, wow.
There's
Okay.
5
There's 7 committee members.
Wow, wow. How did I miss you guys at
Tom,
our
you
last
couldn't
meeting?
us anything.
Yeah.
You traded me here.
Yes, that's correct.
That's right, I did trade Lou here.
Yeah,
We were doing
Gloria,
committee
with
on
you.
committees.
It happens.
I feel like I was in the baseball league.
Okay, all
Thank
right. Cool, cool, cool. It was a good trade.
I don't have any more to contribute.
Okay. All right, so on the routine consent agenda, we are going to pull 6.2 because that was approved last month. Is there anything else to pull? So we have 6.1, 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5.
So we're pulling 6.2?
We're going to abandon it.
Okay,
Because it's already.
right, got it.
We reran it.
Look, you just can't fix stupid, I'm sorry.
Hey, that makes sure that we're paying attention.
All right, so if there's nothing else
She
to
caught it within
pull,
10 minutes of me sending it out, so that, I'm impressed.
Can I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
you can. So Terry made a move. Is there a second?
Second.
Let Ms. Ness,
Yeah, we'll second it. All right, there I'm sure is money on here, so we'll do a roll call.
Say Ms. Ness for a second?
Ms. Ness. Carl?
yes?
Mike?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Gloria?
Yes.
And I say yes. All right, so 6.2 just being pulled off totally, that's not being approved, it's just not.
Just gone. We're gonna, me and my trusty colleague over there, we'll make it disappear.
All right. There is no old business, so now we're at survey results. I'm
Survey
noticing 80 people responded, but
82.
there's 82, but there's 178 employees at the end of January. And I know you tried very hard to get better participation. Yes.
82 is actually a very good response number for surveys that are
I'd like it to be higher.
Huh?
And I threw down the gauntlet with them at the all staff that I'd like to cross 100.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying as an
5 questions.
average,
It takes no time to
And
fill
how
this
many
out.
employees do you have?
About 180.
What did you get a cookie?
Out of how many?
What's that?
You had 80,
I had 82 responses out of about 180 employees.
that's
Thank you.
50% return, that's not bad.
did you threaten kneecap with the other 100?
100%. I don't know who replied and who didn't. I can tell you what percentages of departments.
Yeah, so I wish what percentage of departments?
Yep.
I like meeting
So
out here.
55% was nursing of all the responses. So 55% of the 82 responses. The other big leader in the clubhouse was administrative, but that's like social services, business office. So most of the survey responses that we're getting in are coming from the clinical staff, nursing clinical staff. Now, the way we've done this in the past is that we send this out both in email and then in text messages. We have a text blast type service that we use. And the prior one, I think we had 50-something people respond, and then this time we bumped that number up a little bit. We've never really had good responses to employee surveys, and that includes the ones that the county does to all staff. Valley High usually only has like 12, 13 people that respond to that out of the number. So I'm happy with 82, but I really think that we should be able to get over 100. There's no reason why we can't.
Well, no, there are reasons, but I'm just saying to you, because we distribute surveys all the time in my company, this is not a bad result. And so, and there are a number of reasons why people don't fill out surveys. Sometimes it's not because they're unhappy where they're at. If they're really unhappy, they're going to fill it out.
That's right.
So that, we know that, right? If people are dissatisfied or unhappy and you ask them to do a survey and comment, that's what's going to show up.
And that's why I think we can get the number up. Because I had some staff come to me and say, I don't agree with the survey results. I don't agree with what you shared at the meeting. Meaning that they thought it should have been better. Well, did you fill one out? No, because I don't have anything to complain about. Well, that makes a difference. Because it skews the numbers.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me, and I'm agreeing with you, that people that typically don't have something negative to say, they don't respond, well, I think you can find 18 more people that are in that boat.
Well, that's fine, Tom, if you want to. I'm just looking at the trending data on this survey. I don't think these are not bad results.
But if you want to,
I'm going to push back on you a little bit. I disagree. I think the results are not as well as we would have liked them to be.
Okay,
and
I
if
get
you
that.
want higher participation, I think that's what you just said. You know, there are a lot of people here who are very pleased. We need to hear from you too. Just let them know that this is just not for a bitch session. You know.
Gloria.
Sorry.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
But we want to know if you're happy too,
And I did,
not
when
just from unhappy people.
we talked with the staff and reviewed these with them, I did tell them that, and I told them to expect this again in March, or maybe April, so a couple months from now. And I did tell them all, you know, I'm sharing this with the operating committee, I'm sharing this with the public. So if you don't like the way it's framed, how do we change that?
Well, who designed the questions?
We did.
Okay, you
So-
might want to take a look at that.
There's one question I don't like. I can already tell you. But if you do surveys all the time and you have a better way to get what you want, I'm sure Tara and I would love to hear it. And then we're gonna recruit you, and I'm gonna give you the short-term resident one and the long-term resident one, and have you help me with that one too.
Yeah, open up your mouth.
See?
Well, there's a way to ask the question 3 or 4 different ways.
That's right.
That gives you a clear picture of what people are actually. Because if I'm angry, I'm just going to hit strong. You know, I'm just going to hit all the no, I don't like you. No, that doesn't matter. So I'm looking at the data really right around disagree and neutral.
Okay.
Your neutral numbers are not bad. Your disagree are the lowest numbers that show up in the survey. That also gives you an idea of what your development plan might look like going forward. What's engagement like? How do you engage? I'm just going to make this. Maybe you get an employee to talk about the importance of the survey at an all-staff meeting rather than you.
I would agree with that. And I have somebody that we use as that contact person. She's the chair of the employee council. Her name's Melanie.
Well, that would be a natural.
And she was the one that was going around bugging everybody to, hey, did you get that text message today?
Well,
You
how
need to-"
about somebody who doesn't go around bug people?
I'm open to
I
suggestions.
know, I'm just saying, like, if what you're wanting to do is increase results and completion,
Why not a little bribery of, here's a card from McDonald's and you get a free Coke?
But then it's not anonymous. Right now, we don't know who's filling out the survey, right? If we're handing out, hey, they filled out a survey, and oh, here's your $5 for.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that they want.
Oh, I was
out of
taking it,
all of
this
that-
came in an envelope and
Nope.
nobody knows.
Nope, it's SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
So what we do is we emailed the link out and then we text it to everybody. And then we did that like 5-6 times where we just said, hey, just the window's closing, please get your surveys in. And it would be available on their phone. So one of the things that we targeted, and Ms. Ness can kind of guide me through this, but we tried to keep it short so that they could do it like get on your phone right here, do it real quick, boom, 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 boom. Measurable, so we can measure from one to the next, are we hitting the right marks? And then allow them for the opportunity to provide comments, which I did write down some of the key comments in each one of these sections if you'd like to hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
But if you're saying we need to ask the question differently multiple times to try to drive some to a certain point, I would have to, you'd have to teach me. Because we had one that was really extensive and we would get 12 or 15 responses.
And here's the other thing, I don't even look at these percentages, I don't even look at them. I look at the comments. That's, leaders have to do better. I mean, that's an instructive that says something, I don't know what that means.
No, that's my comment. Okay, so,
Yeah. I am interested in seeing the comments, yeah.
so let me, well, I didn't put the comments in the packet. I'll
Right.
tell you some of the key ones. So
Yeah.
let me tell you what you're actually looking at. You're looking at the slides that were part of the presentation that I gave to the staff on the 31st. So there was a section on trauma-informed care. I didn't give you guys that because again, you know, it's like 20 slides you don't really need to read. And then there was a whole section on, after the survey results, understanding the different generations. And then there was some updates and stuff. I didn't give you any of that. So these are my comments when I was talking with the staff, and that's my bullet point. The leaders got to do better. That's what I believe.
Okay.
And that includes myself. Again, an old guy in the room realization that I might not be communicating effectively with some of these younger staff. So a little bit more touch points. So like in the first section, I'm satisfied with the culture of my workplace. The three comments that really come out are it's staffing based, staff burnout, and this transition to the second floor, where we moved everybody up. We still have staff, and there was one comment that was in there that was pretty rough about the transition to the second floor and when are we going to go back? Like, as in, it was a non-permanent decision. When are we going to go back? We've tried this. I addressed that at the meeting, and I said to the staff, you know, we can't. We're at a point here with the memory care project and the way long-term care has transitioned with this acuity that we can't go back to it being the sleepy old Valley High out in the cornfields. We have to compete with everybody else. One of the things that we've done is that we've resisted that change to post-acute for as long as we possibly could. Well, COVID forced your hand. You can no longer could sit there on your haunches and say, we're not going to get into that post-acute world. We needed it. And so in order for us to survive, we had to make that shift and that transition. Now, we need to be better at communicating that. And we need to be better at communicating the why we did what we did. Because what I'm learning is that the younger generations want to understand the why behind the decisions. So we explain that. And I spend some time walking it through with them.
Yeah, but what I also hear is that people are grieving the loss of something that was familiar and comfortable to them. You can't fix it, nor should you, but you can certainly understand that it's there. That softens the blow to, you know, don't talk them out of their experience. Just like, that's a huge shift. I hate to say this, Tom, but when you say sleepy, you know what, that's comforting to people, that sleepy, old-timey place where we bring our people that we love and now they can't, you know, and to lose that, I think that would be hard.
The other
for
thing is
people.
just, and we'll see this in the tour, down here is very pretty. Upstairs it's not. And so,
Sure, all that matters.
right,
I
so
mean,
we moved all the long-term care people upstairs where it's not as attractive.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I went to a very upscale nursing home in
Yeah.
this county. Well, it was a staged, you could age out, right?
Mhm.
First entry door, independent living, beautiful, and, you know, lovely. And even then, assisted was lovely. Long term was in the basement, and I was
wow.
like, what? Like, I would never let my elderly mother. I mean, it just sort of went downhill there. You would walk into it. I hated going to visit. I visited a friend's mother there. I went every 2 weeks to see them. It was all the numbers came off their clothes, so their personal clothes didn't often get returned to their. I mean, it just was like, oh, well, you're going to die soon, so we're just going to put you down here. And Yeah, so I do think environment is so, and if you work in there, could you imagine? Well, I don't know. I couldn't work in an environment like that. Would be hard for me.
Well, that's one of those things that come up when you ask about employee satisfaction.
Yes, exactly.
So it's really important.
And some of our staff are really having a hard time with the adjustment to the volume of admissions and discharges.
I bet.
You know, when you're not doing a lot of post-acute care, you might have 2 admissions in a week. One of the complaints that, one of the comments that was on the survey is, when are we gonna stop taking 2 admissions a day? Well, you can't. If 2 people are going home each day, you gotta have 2 people coming in each day in order to stay balanced.
Right.
And so part of that is us doing a better job of communicating to the staff the why behind the way things are. You know, yeah, admissions, they take a lot of work. They take a lot of work for a lot of different people. To have 2 in the same day, plus people coming in and out from the hospital and doctor's visits and everything else, that's a lot of upheaval, let's just say.
Yeah.
And so if you're used to that, you come in, you pass your pills, and your day kind of just runs through and smooth, transitioning to this new fast pace, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I would have liked to have the staff to have acclimated it better, faster. I feel like, you know, when you walk the halls, we're getting there.
Yeah.
But it's still impacting the staff.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
In the next category, I have a good working relationship with my supervisor. Some of the key comments that came back was that our CNA team leaders need more development, which that is part of this strategic plan going forward, is to revamp our team leader program. And then there was a lot of comments about involvement from various nursing leaders in more touch points from them. And this is where that was really bearing itself out in this comment right here.
Bless you.
Bless you. The next category, when I speak up at work, my opinion is valued. The 3 key takeaways and comments that came out of that was transition to the 2nd floor. And there was a lot of comments about, you know, staff that didn't want to do it, but it was done anyway. I get that. Staff want more input on room changes. And I think Gloria will be able to validate that one of the worst things that you have to do, or the hardest things, is room changes. Because nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy. And then the last one comment in there that kind of stood out, and there was a few, was nurses are not listening to the CNAs. So the CNAs are coming to the nurses with recommendations or suggestions, and the nurses are just kind of doing their own thing. So we got to work with our nurses on that a little bit. CNAs they're the eyes and ears of the nurse, so if they're not listening to the CNAs, that's a problem. That's a disconnect. The last category about I feel respected and valued by my manager, the 2 key takeaways is, again, nurse leadership more present. And then there was a few comments about there's no formal recognition for strong employees, and it was the people that show up on time, the people that are here every day and whatnot, or for milestones. And that, I think, is a county-related issue. We, in the county, do not use taxpayer-funded dollars for employee recognition programs. Now, Valley High uses donation money to do that, but we don't, we're very, I don't want to say protective of that because it's a limited pot, but we don't go and throw it around too crazy. We try to do something every quarter for employees. So when you see the recruitment and retention plan come through, there's going to be a whole section on employee recognition and some different things that we might be able to do to kind of address that shortfall. So we'll take a look at that when we get a little bit further down.
That is the largest jump. That's almost a 14% increase from October to January. I suspect it's not just about employee recognition.
The other thing that we could talk about or look at is that the Department of Transportation does every quarter? I think it's every quarter they have an employee of the quarter. And they have a little plaque. So
Every month,
It's every month?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is not about that. I would bet any money this is not about employee recognition.
So,
If you've just outlined a couple of traumatic environmental changes for the staff here, the work increase, the movement from one floor to all of it, you might see a different report in 3 months.
I would agree. There was only 4 comments left in this section total.
Okay.
The first one was, there is no recognition for some of the strongest employees. Having been here for several years, I've never received any level of recognition or thank you for that. Overall, for full-time, part-time registry, there really is no thank you, no show or reward for employees that show up on time every day and those who don't show at all. The ending section doesn't make sense, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Number 2 is, this is a very rewarding aspect. Number 3 is, I don't feel valued. And number 4 is, nurses get what they want and they are always the ones getting back up.
So, Tom, I have a question. One of the things that I did at Riverside Foundation was a perfect attendance program. I don't know if attendance is an issue.
It's an issue.
But it was beginning to be an issue there. So I did a perfect attendance program, and we did attach money to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a lot of money, but everybody loves seeing their name on the list of perfect attendance for the month of January or for first
We
quarter.
do it quarterly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then they get a card,
Mhm.
and then the cards, if any type of a recognition, you get a card for it.
Mhm.
And then you can cash the cards in for swag and sweatshirts and,
Cool.
you know, all kinds of stuff like that. So we have that.
Mhm.
We still have an attendance problem.
Yeah, you know, yeah, we can try to like I don't think it's my job to give you solutions to this.
Is-
Go ahead,
Is the
Mike.
attendance problem, is it a generational thing? And
No,
okay.
no.
Okay.
I would love to be able to say, yeah, it's really that simple, but it's not.
Physician?
It's nurses and CNAs, and they call off a lot. And
Okay.
and I'm gonna tell you, I'll give you both sides of it. So from an employer standpoint, we have way too many call-offs, and this is historical. It's been like that for the entire time that I've been here.
Mhm.
And part of that is that I think that our attendance policy probably needs to be a lot tighter,
Right.
but there's not a whole lot of leeway when you tighten up that policy for some of the other things that go on. You know, we're trying to be as employee-centered as possible. The other side of that is, long-term care has got this cycle that you get into, right? So you work, your teammate calls off today, so you have to work to cover their load. So tomorrow you're kind of feeling a little sore, so you call off.
Right.
And so then the next person takes a turn, and then the next person takes a turn. And it's like, in one of the comments on, in the first section, it was, we needed to get our teammates to stop calling off.
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to be out there being the call-off police. I
Right.
mean, there's a disciplinary process that we put everybody through, but how about we start holding each other accountable?
Yeah.
If you're working down in a CNA because your teammate just called off, why don't you say something to her? Hey, you know, you really put us at a disadvantage yesterday. We need you here.
Is that a problem that just exists within long-term care as a whole, or is it unique to?
I think it's a little bit of both. Okay, long-term care has that call-off cycle problem. County employment also leads to a little bit of that. I have some involvement with other facilities, and I can tell you the county homes have this problem and that I'm involved with, and the non-county homes don't.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is, but
Could be the structure of government structure, what you can and can't do.
I think
to-
there's a little bit,
Civilian is easier to deal with. You don't like it, there's the door,
a little
pal.
bit of that.
Yeah, I suspect it goes back to what you said, Tom. It goes back to your policy. Because there are some companies that, even in long-term care, that have very strict attendance policies. And like, for instance, Maryville Academy, when I worked there, you had 3 absenteeisms, you were gone. I
Yeah,
mean,
but if he already has a staffing
I'm
issue.
just
like-
saying, no, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but
and
if-
that's what employees do. They take advantage of that because they know you're short.
Well,
And so, but it doesn't matter. You still have to have some kind of accountability in your policy. So it doesn't have to be rigid, but it shouldn't be a free-for-all either. So there should be some consequences to not showing up
They
to
don't
work.
get paid. Do they get paid?
Well, if
It
they call in
depends.
sick,
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, it's not our job to do this. I don't think, I don't
No, I'm
feel
just, we're
Yeah,
just
but what I'm
brainstorming
saying
here.
is
We're not
I-
trying to tell them how to run.
how do you schedule your nurses? Do you do the 12-hour shifts?
I got it. We have really shifted to being employee-centered. So I've got 12s, I've got 10s, I've got 4s, I've got 8s.
Okay.
I think that there's actually some room here. So right now we don't have an assistant director of nursing. We've had a job posting for a little while now. We're not getting a ton of responses that meet kind of the full qualifications of what we're looking for. So the other day we were sitting there talking, and it's like, what if we instead, because right now we're posting full time, and right now we're doing okay without the ADON. What if we go out and say, instead of doing 8 hours a day, give me 6. Drop your kids off at school, come in, run the floor for 5 hours, go home, pick your kids up from school, or be there when they get off the bus. And that might change our candidate pool significantly. Now, my wife has that kind of an arrangement with the credit institution she works for. And it's been perfect with the kids that we've had. And that's the only reason she stayed there for the last 15
Yeah,
years.
I bet.
So we do think outside the box, and I think we're even getting more creative. So hopefully when we repost this ad with, we're going to call it Mom's Hours, you know, drop your kid off, pick your kid up, whatever the case may be.
We need to call it parent hours.
Parent hours,
Oh, sure, I
fine.
like that.
And then we'll have that be flexible enough that they can take those 6 hours and shift them up, shift them down, doesn't matter. So we'll save a little money. At the same time, we'll get some coverage, and maybe we can attract some candidates that were sitting on the sidelines because they don't have 8 hours a day to give, but they only got 6.
How does the second paycheck for that employee work then? Is that gonna be based on a full-time employee, you know, their benefits and all that, or are you gonna tailor it?
Scale it all down.
Okay,
Scale it all down.
yeah.
So still
I've got
IMRF,
no problem
still
with that.
insurance related. The only difference is you're not paying the same amount of salary. And I think that,
I think employers have to be creative.
Well, you're not gonna give the same vacation time to someone working 6 hours as you would
the county does
8.
the accruals automatically.
I'm using that as an
Yeah,
example.
so it all will be accrued based off of what we agree on. If they come on at 32 hours a week, then that's what the accruals will be based on. That's what everything will be the salary position would be based on 32 hours a week. So hopefully that'll change the market too. We're trying to be as creative as possible. But I'll take any ideas you guys have. So anything more you want to go over with the survey? I think we need a few more to get the heavy trending down. A couple more of these put together.
So and then the surveys for families and residents, that's gonna be next month?
Next
or-
month. Next month.
Okay.
We put them out, the resident ones, we started on Monday, yesterday, and I got almost all of them done already. So it will be ready for you guys next month. That one, the resident ones are easy because the activity staff just go down, knock on the door, hey, do you want to participate in the survey? And then we do send them out to families, and we'll be able to break the data down between whether the response was from a resident or from a family member. So we'll also be able to see that difference.
All right. Are there other future topics? So next month, we're also gonna look again at the financial tool, right?
Financial sustainability tool, yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
So would it
you
make
were reading my
sense
mind.
to
That's
ask
what I
Donna
was
to come?
thinking of, because I really enjoyed that, Scott. That was really, and I like looking at the experimental thing that we can do with the case mix and see how that, figures into where we are financially and, our bottom line. And I think this is especially important now, as we're anticipating going into memory care. So,
I'm looking forward to that next month, getting the updated financial data loaded in, working with Treasurer Kurtz to come up with a different formula for the interest, because that amounts to real revenue now based on what's invested. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so
Would you like me to invite the treasurer to the next meeting since we're doing financial modeling?
Yes, that'd be
that would
fantastic.
important.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to her for that.
Okay, other topics, anyone?
Not a topic, but a question for it. At the VA facility at Great Lakes and here in McHenry, no matter, I don't care what department you're going, what doctor you're going, they always have a survey box there with ample amount of survey cards. Do we do any kind of sampling here on a continual basis? Okay, I didn't,
Yep, short-term residents, about
I
24
mean,
to 48.
everybody.
Well, so short-term residents, about 24 to 48 hours after they leave, they get a text and an email survey. And then
Okay.
all the long-term residents, we try to get them quarterly.
Oh, I'm actually talking,
we talked about.
here's a 4x5 stack of cards and here's a box.
We don't have anything like that.
You know, just an instant response that actually goes to their personnel people that know, you know, you were in here first time or second time, hey, it was awesome service or whatever, you fill out and throw the card in, is getting continual feedback.
Okay, so we have something similar to that, but it's not the card. We have, I don't know what the formal title is, but it
Sorry,
allows.
old school, always writing.
Well, no, we have forms that they could fill out if they want to recognize a staff member for something they did, things like that, and parents, family fill it out, but I don't think it's geared towards more of like what you're talking about, suggestion box. So that might be something to take a look at.
Yeah, that somewhat suggest, but not, you know, how was your service, or what would you recommend different, or, you know, interactive, trying to force the issue, you know, to get your feedback.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Alright. Other future topics? Going once?
I just had a general
Yeah.
question on funding opportunities and the COVID funds, the ARPA funds. Is there any other additional opportunity to access that to help bridge this long-term gap? I know the funds have to be spent in a certain time period.
Yeah, so, and I probably want to defer to, well, Finance and Audit, I think we'll be talking about that on Thursday. There were two buckets of money. Half that money, about 29 million, went out to the community through applications. The other half was reserved for county purposes. Based on all the projects that have been assembled and compiled, from what I'm understanding from County Administrator Austin, the sum total was is exceeding what we have available. So County Board's gonna have to make some decisions on what it funds for itself. But included in that was a certain amount of money designated, or kind of say fenced, for the health department, and there's a few buckets which probably will have some more refinement. But short answer is, at this point in time, county needs are exceeding the available dollars.
So how would you get money to rehab the second floor?
When you say rehab, what do you mean?
I don't know.
Just
If
make
it's
it pretty.
depress it, well, if it's not very inviting,
There's no difference between the first and second floor, except the second floor doesn't have this nice hallway here. They just have the unit. One of the complaints that we're getting from some of our more cognitively intact residents on the second floor is that they have to come downstairs to get access to the outside. So we're addressing that through the expansion, and we think we have a solution to build them a deck patio off the second floor to allow them to have their own space, easy access to the outside.
so it's not like they need upgrades in the room, the nursing stations
Nope.
don't look.
No, they just don't have the fancy amenities that this first floor has to offer down in this hallway. But as far as the dining rooms, they were refreshed just this last year. The flooring in the hallways, that was done 5 years ago now?
Yeah, about,
Because it was pre-COVID, so the floors were redone.
Okay, well, if there's no difference and it's inviting and it's friendly and warm.
I would not say that there's no difference, there is clearly a difference. But it's, you know, the residents are different. Down here, it's quiet. You get up on the second floor, it's hustle and bustle. I mean, there are people everywhere. So they are different environments, but they're not vastly different from as far as what we've offered as far as structure. And we have a robust capital plan that goes out 10, 15 years of, we know when the floors are gonna have to come out of the resident rooms, we know. So we stay way ahead of all of that building disrepair stuff, which is why the building at 15 years old still looks really, really good.
Are you offering a tour?
I could offer as many tours as we need.
Alright, well then, is there a motion to adjourn? Carl motions, a
Second.
Gloria seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright, we are adjourned at 3 o'clock.